All right, our Pledge of Allegiance today will be given by Charlie Ewart, invocation by Duncan Olson, thought of the day by me. Well, let's go to there.
Our dear, kind, and gracious Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this day. We're grateful for the country that we live in. We're grateful for this time of year. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the moisture and snow that we have received. Please continue to bless this land, that we might be able to sustain our lawns, gardens, and pastures. We might be able to continue to grow here. Heavenly Father, please bless the commissioners that they can continue to guide us and lead our county in the right direction and be able to be fair and just. Please bless these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Duncan. We appreciate that. Well, thought of the day can't be anything but the fact of c'est la vie. We'll see ya. Don't look back. I was always said that. When your time's up, you work hard, you go out and give it all you got, and when you're done, you walk away. You don't look back. You did everything you could do. And that's what I've done, everything I could do.
Exactly what you've done.
Tried to be transparent and straightforward and let people know what I stood for, and that's it. So I appreciate the opportunity, having served the county and all the folks in it. And it's been 4.5 great years. I won that appointment to the commission by 1 vote.
That's right.
So I got appointed by 1 vote, and that's tight. It's not often that happens.
Every vote counts.
Every vote counts. Isn't that the truth? Anyway, commissioners, I want to know, appreciate you both. Good to serve with you. All right, that's my thoughts.
Great stuff.
Anything you want to say?
Not now.
Okay, that's good.
We'll save it. But
Good.
Don't think you're out of the woods yet.
Well, I worry about that. You both got your hats and told me to get mine, so it worries me. All right. We would like to go to the public comments today. If you've got anything you'd like to say outside of our public hearing, you're welcome to come up. So it's related to the commission. You will have time in our public hearing to comment on things like that. So, is this Shelley?
Shelley has.
I'm gonna do this without crying.
Okay.
Commissioner.
The microphone.
I just want to let you know I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you. You have accomplished everything you set forth to do. Is that working? And you have more integrity than anyone I know. And I appreciate you. Sorry. Thank you so much. You've been awesome, and I just love you, and I'm gonna miss you, but good luck in your future adventure.
Thank you. You said you wasn't going to cry. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Shelley. It's been a pleasure working with you. I want you to know it. You and Stacy and Christy, you've been wonderful. You guys are so, so nice to us. And you always make us look good. So it's appreciated. All right. Well, I don't see anybody else jumping up, so let's go to the next items on the agenda. They are, first of all, the consent items. First items of approval of the warrants listed today for $2,547,647. Item 2 is request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $55,697. Ricky, you want to give a summary of those?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet.
We issued 9 purchase orders this week for $56,000. 38% of that amount, or $21,000, was for the health department to purchase vaccines. 30%, or $17,000, was for property management, and that is for the consulting for the concrete redesign for the public defender's office. As far as checks, we issued 192 warrants this week for $2.5 million. 36% of that, or $925,000, was for the medical, dental, and disability insurance for employees. 23%, or $544,000, was for the transfer station, which was mostly disposal fees, but also tree grinding services and some equipment maintenance. 12%, or $298,000, was related to escrow releases to Somerset, Taylor Landing, Jacqueline Estates, and Sky Ranch. And then lastly, 7%, or $175,000, was for the library to purchase books and materials, software, utilities, and conduct some building improvements.
Thank you, Ricky. We appreciate that. All right, item 4 is request for approval of a transfer
Hold
station.
on. Can we have any questions on that?
Sure. I'm sorry.
Okay. You know, how many times did you do that to me?
That's
No,
okay.
I've got a couple of questions, and every now and again, I wrote down a couple. Every now and again, the seriousness of government, we need to find a little culture
I agree.
in this. And some of those expenses, Ricky, well, Bill, why don't you start things off?
Almost retired, Mr. Jenkins. Years of service flowing like a river. You're getting older, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, still got 2 good knees. Country roads take him home to the place he belongs, to retirement, home with mama. Take him home, country roads.
I got it. You're gonna need to back that up just a little. Bill, hold on.
Now turn it off, turn it down.
All right. All the memories from the dais, sheriff's chairs. Hold on one moment. Hoax and Sphincter, watch out what you say. Commie, Rag, and Judas, what's the word today? Country roads, take him home to the place he belongs, to retirement, home with mama. Take him home, country roads. I see him sweat in the early hours at Gold's Gym. No meat for this man, he's got to hike rim to rim. And tourism has its daddy, and the grandkids have their great adventure every year. Every year, everybody sing. Roads, take him home to the place he belongs, to retirement, home with mama. Take him home, country roads. Take him home. Take him home, down to the place he belongs, to retirement. Home with mama, take him home. Country road, take him home. Down country road, take him home. Down country road. Yeehaw! That's nice.
Oh, thank you. Wow, that's a pretty good send-off. Woo! I think we ought to end the meeting right now. We can do all this other stuff next year.
Well, that's another thing. Motion to adjourn? Oh, you didn't recognize me.
yeah, I
How many
will.
times you do that?
Be careful. There's a few people who'll be upset today if we adjourn.
Would. It's like the other time.
That is true. You know, we've actually done this before, adjourned early and not said anything to anybody. I'll never forget that day.
You?
Yeah, Commissioner Harvey was conducting it. He didn't know quite what to think. And I said, "Would you recognize me?" And he said, "Sure." And whew, me and Gage were out of here before he could sign the closing documents. Okay, doggone.
There you go.
Okay, I don't have any more
Wipe the
questions
tears
pertaining
from
to the
my-
finances. Thank you.
Okay, so you're done?
Yeah.
Okay, I got tears in my tie. Okay, here we go. Item 4. Request for approval of transportation and land use connection consultant. Agreement by and between Weber County and Kimley Horn. Who's this?
Sorry, Commissioners, I was hoping that this would be on the consent agenda. This is basically an agreement to create the Western Weber Active Transportation Plan. Weber County, in consultation with the Wasatch Front Regional Council, actually it was, it was West Haven who initially applied for the grant to create a cross-jurisdictional active transportation plan. And they were awarded that by the Wasatch Front Regional Council in the form of the TLC grants, and they asked that we join on with them. And so
Wow.
signed an agreement to join on, but our contribution is relatively small. You can see what that number is in the document there. We're just hoping to get it ratified by all of the different participating communities. Our agreement is technically with Wasatch Front Regional Council, so really it's just a ratification of the contract that Wasatch Front has with them.
And this will be paid out of those Prop 1 funds?
I believe this is actually going to be paid out with our impact fee funds.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, this is good. Thank you.
Good news.
I'm excited about this. All right, item 5 is a request for approval to cancel the regular commission meeting scheduled for December 27th, and just go with January 3rd. Okay, so that means we're going to cancel next meeting.
Okay.
Item 6 is request for approval of retirement agreement by and between Weber County and Brandon Flinders. And the seventh one is a request for a retirement agreement by and between Weber County and Kyle Osick.
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 I don't see a retirement agreement between the Weber County and me.
Yeah, well, you don't get
I
retirement.
don't get retirement out of them, do I? That's what happens when you're a commissioner. All right.
Get away with those.
Yeah, you do. There's the consent items. Any questions, commissioners?
Not for me.
With that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve F like Foxtrot, 1 through and including 7.
Very good. Have a motion.
And I'll second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, there's Tim Vandernack just walked in, and you missed the song, Tim. We all sang before you got here. All right, item G1, our action item today is request for approval of a resolution of Weber County Commission setting the meeting schedule dates for Weber County Commission meetings during the 2023 calendar. Craig Brandt.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. So this resolution just proposes the 2023 calendar year
Very good. Commissioners, any questions?
No questions.
We got it.
I think so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution 52-2022, approving the calendar dates for the Weber County Commission meetings held in 2023.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Nope.
Oh, that's true. Roll call vote. Boy, that's why we write these out this way. Craig?
It wouldn't have been the same if that had happened once.
Yeah, that's true. Wouldn't have been the same.
The roll call vote for resolution 52-2022. Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey,
Aye.
Chair Jenkins.
Aye. Very good. Item number 2 is a request for approval of a resolution 53-2022 of Weber County Commission regarding electronic meetings of the Weber County Commission. Craig?
Oh, Commissioners, I'm happy to take this one. I
Okay.
inadvertently put Craig's name on the agenda for this one, but
Hold on. Christopher Crockett.
thank you. Commissioners, this is a change in state law that requires county public bodies to amend any resolution or policy that they have regarding electronic meetings to state whether or not if a member who is participating in a meeting electronically will be considered in part of the count for a quorum. And so that's what this resolution does, is say that it actually can be used towards counting
Good.
for a quorum. So that's all the only change.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners?
Not for me. Be happy to make a motion when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve Resolution 53-2022.
I'll second that motion.
Very good. We have a motion to second this. Craig, roll call vote.
Roll call vote for resolution 53-2022. Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey,
Aye.
Chair Jenkins.
Aye. Thank you. Item 3 is a request for approval of a subrecipient agreement for American Rescue Plan, ARPA funds, between Weber County and Powder Mountain Water and Sewer District. Are you kidding me? You mean we're actually going to get this done, Sean?
We put this on today for your last meeting.
I'm so excited about this.
Thank you. Commissioners, this is a funding agreement between Weber County and Powder Mountain Water and Sewer Improvement District for an ARPA grant from the county. Powder Mountain applied to the county with some sewer projects, and their request was divided up into 2 phases. The county has agreed to provide funding only for phase 1 of that project. The total request, or the total cost of the project was $3.29 million, and the county has agreed to provide Powder Mountain with $2.4 million. These funds will be used for new sewer lines, a new lift station, and slip lining some existing sewer lines, as well as some other maintenance and improvements that need to take place within that system. So again, this ARPA funding is only for phase 1. Now, phase 2 is a much bigger scale, and it actually goes down into the valley and helps tie into the sewer system that we discussed last week. Wolf Creek provides a much broader approach. We're not going to award any funds for that right now. That's to come in the future as growth occurs and additional development takes place. In addition to those improvements, one of the major things that this agreement does is it releases Weber County from any obligation for maintenance on any of the infrastructure located within Powder Mountain Water and Sewer District. So you'll remember, as part of the bonds that were approved back in 2013 for development up at Powder Mountain, the county did a lot of that work, or provided the contracting for a lot of that work. And there was never a document that transferred ownership of the infrastructure. This document, or this agreement, will do that. So Powder Mountain Water and Sewer District will take over and ownership of those improvements from here on out. So we believe this is a good agreement, and it will be helpful to both the county and to the Powder Mountain Water and Sewer.
Commissioner, questions?
This is wonderful to get this done.
Man, this goes back multiple commissions.
Does. Yeah, this is, again, another step in the right direction for funding, just like we did last week with Wolf Creek Water and Sewer. And this is a continuation, again, of directed ARPA funds toward improving water quality by virtue of putting in a sewer system that will start to end potential pollution to the Pine View Reservoir. Plus, it clears up, as you said, goes back multiple years that was never cleared up. And now we finally brought an end to that, and let me just say, it's been really a pleasure working with the people with Powder Mountain Water and Sewer. They've been very professional and great to work with.
I agree with that.
You know, it's, the great part about it is some people may say, why are we expending so much expense in the Ogden Upper Valley? Proportionally, as far as population, it may not be quite fair. But it not only just helps the people in the Ogden Upper Valley, but it'll eventually help all the people in this valley because it protects the drinking water source for the grandchildren of our grandchildren. At least it takes it's a huge leap forward in doing that. Huge, and that's what these funds are intended to do. So that's the purpose that we're focusing so much on that Ogden Upper Valley. Thank you, Sean, for what you've done. We appreciate getting all the other stuff done. Commissioner, if you're ready, I'm willing to make a motion.
I'm ready.
I'll make a motion that we approve the $2.4 million ARPA request to the Powder Mountain Water Sewer Improvement District.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Thank you, Sean. We appreciate your efforts here. And
Commissioners, if I may, I want to thank Cortland Erickson and Commissioner Rockett again for their
bet.
Yeah,
We
good,
appreciate
good
it.
point.
Well, with that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes. We have Powder Mountain here. Roy, you guys want to say anything on this? Bob, we'd allow you to say a few words here. Doesn't often you get $2.4 million.
You know, Mark feels like it, sir.
Go ahead.
We'd like to thank the county commission, and we will live up to your expectations. We're deeply committed to improving quality in the Upper Valley and the spillover effect, if you will, related to improving quality in Pine View. And we will continue to meet those obligations as a district. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Well, that's good.
Good. Making progress today.
Good night. This is almost monumental a little bit this day.
Wow.
I know. Man, let's keep it going. Item 4 is approval of a final reading
Here's another one.
for fee ordinance related to the residential solid collection and disposal services. Sean Wilkinson.
Thank you. Commissioners, I presented the first reading of this ordinance last week. This simply adjusts our fees for solid waste collection service in the unincorporated areas of western Weber County and Uinta Highlands. Our contract is currently with Republic Services. So as part of this, there is an annual 3% increase, and that will be passed on to the residents, but there was a fuel surcharge as well, 57 cents per customer per month. The county has acted to reduce our county administrative fee by 57 cents per customer per month to offset that cost, so that will not be passed on to the customers.
Well, and we do have a meeting coming up today, is it? Today, yeah, that's going to talk about the hauling fee increase.
Oh, they finally,
Finally have it.
get the number.
That only took
Yeah.
7 months.
Yeah, we don't know what it is. We'll have it at noon today to talk about, so. Very good, so thank you. So this is ordinance number 2022-30. How about a motion for one of you?
Motion to approve ordinance 2022-30, amending the solid waste collection and disposal fees.
Second.
Very good, I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Craig?
Okay, roll call vote for ordinance 2022-30. Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
Chair Jenkins?
Aye. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Very good. Next item on the agenda is a zoning map amendment and zoning development agreement associated with the rezoning of 242 acres, known as JDC Ranches at 2874 West, 2600 North, between Plain City and Far West. Steve Burton.
Speak up, just speak up.
So I think there's a button in front of you, Commissioner Jenkins. That was in the planning commission meeting last week, where the chair was pressing a few buttons and might have messed up the mic.
Yeah,
Test.
Test. There we go.
There you go.
Now we know.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Geez, you had to wait till now to say it? The
Yes,
meeting's
I
half
did.
over.
Commissioner Jenkins has been pushing buttons his whole life.
That's right. Go ahead, Steve.
So Commissioners, you'll remember there was a public hearing last week to consider this rezone. 242 acres, including 725 dwelling units is the proposal off of 2600 North near Plain City. There was a motion to approve, but to change the number of townhomes from 125 to 100. And then that ended up being tabled so that we could prepare a page to swap into the development agreement if that ended up being approved that way. So we have the developer has prepared that, and they've agreed to that number if that's what you'd like to do. But that was the reason for tabling last week, and happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Commissioners, any questions?
No,
I think
just,
we've all had a chance to review this week.
Yeah, we've reviewed it. Now, you said the developer has okayed that change from 125 to 100?
They're comfortable if that's the route you'd go. I think they're still hoping to get 125 townhomes.
Okay.
But they're comfortable. They've prepared a page in case that you're okay with, in case you'd prefer 100. They're comfortable with that as well.
Very good.
okay, 100. I'll make that motion, which is 100, then 200 on the patio. And then so I'll make a motion if that's the way that reads then, Steve. Make a motion, we approve ordinance 2022-31 that reflects those changes.
It would be there's an ordinance, there's a rezoning ordinance, but there's also a development agreement that will have that in it.
Okay, thank you. Amend motion to include
Have a
those.
motion.
I'll second.
And we have a second. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So to that motion, I'm going to call it. All in favor, say aye.
Nope,
Oh, that's true. This is Craig? Craig. Roll call vote.
Okay, roll call vote for ordinance 2022-31, Commissioner Faur.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
aye.
Chair Jenkins.
No. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, item number 6, Duncan Olson. This is a request for approval of contract between Weber County and Golden Spike Gem and Mineral Society to hold a gemstone junction at the Golden Spike Event Center. They do this every year, don't they?
They do. They
This
do.
is pretty big, actually,
Yeah,
for people who like to do this kind of stuff.
I didn't ever realize that this community was as big as it is. So they're coming back. The reason why it's in front of you guys today is because we're still working through our fee ordinance, and we're kind of changing the way we're charging for lattice to try to make it make more sense to the customer, but also make us the money that we want to make. So we've kind of been working through it. On the contract, it's written how we're moving forward, but that's outside of our fee ordinance, so that's why it's in front of you guys today.
Commissioner Harvey, your portfolio.
Well, I just, this is a chance for me to make another comment as it relates to the Boy Scouts of America. How would you tie all that together? But that lattice, that framed lattice, where it's all been not just a piece of lattice you go buy at the store, but it's all been framed and mitered and put together and glued, was done as a Eagle project for my boys. That's what we did, our Eagle projects. You may not even have knew
I
that,
didn't know that,
Duncan.
no.
That's how all that got there.
That's cool.
My boys, that's what we did for the Eagle project.
Well, that's good.
That's okay. We don't talk about it much, but that's, so I'll make a motion, we approve this contract by and between Weber County and the Golden Spike Gem and Mineral.
And I'll be happy to second that.
Thank you, Commissioner. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. It passes.
Not that I get a point of privilege or anything, but I do want to
Yeah.
publicly say thank you for your service, everything that you've done for us. You've been super fair, super honest with us. We love it. We're going to miss you, but I just wanted to publicly say thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. Thank you. We appreciate you. And I want from the those who what's the price?
Operations.
Maintenance. Yeah, from the maintenance department, I want to thank you for getting the bid on that building, because even though you didn't use it, they did use it. And that's those two little buildings out on 12th Street. You can hardly see them from the road. They're back there far enough. That all started with Duncan. It was his fault.
Oh, poor brother. Are you kidding me?
All right, item 7 is a request for approval of a contract
Holy mackerel.
between Weber County and the Amplifund to provide grant management software. Scott Park, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You bet.
So as you're aware, we received some ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan Act money. We have also been receiving several different grants at our Sheriff's Office, at our Economic Development, at our Health Department. We've gone from managing around 40 grants to around managing 70 grants, and some of them are small, but some of them are actually fairly large and complex. And so we need to move beyond spreadsheets and handwritten sticky notes to track our compliance, to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do with these grants. And so we went out and researched several different companies and came up with Amplifund to provide a grant management compliance software. So it's a web-based system. We'll be able to load all of our grants out there, and it will help us track our compliance and make sure that we're meeting all of the requirements that we have to do, all our reporting requirements, all of our performance requirements, and we can show our auditors and everybody else that we're well managing these grants. And so what you have before you is a 3-year contract. It will actually, it's eligible to be paid for by our administrative funds from the ARPA grant. And we'll use it for 3 years just to make sure that we like it and it's providing value for us, and then we'll make a decision whether we want to continue with it after that 3 years, depending on how well it does for us. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, Commissioners?
Sounds like a good program. I'd be happy to make a motion when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So, Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the contract by and between Weber County and Amplifund to provide grant management software as presented by Mr. Scott Park this morning.
Second the motion.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. We have been through this and decided this was a good thing to do. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Very good. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, next item is request for consideration and action on a proposed contract with Granicus for short-term rental monitoring and enforcement. Bill Kobabe. Bill?
Good morning.
Good
I don't
morning.
really have much more to add to this conversation. You did get a hard copy of the contract in front of you. Granicus is a reputable outfit. They have been very responsive to all of our questions and concerns. There were some question marks that Cortland reviewed and got to us just this morning, that this contract, as it is in front of you, is acceptable to him. So I don't have much more to add to that.
Questions, Commissioners?
No.
Go
ahead.
What is your portfolio?
Thank you. First off, I want to thank planning. You know, this STR has been a kind of a moving project for the last couple of years. Well intended, because the idea and really issue behind short-term rentals enforcement was, let's have a third-party enforcement. We don't have the people here at the county 24/7, 7 days a week to look at any potential complaints. And they took the time to not only visit a number of areas around the western United States, but took time to do an RFP and investigated third-party providers. So to me, it's about enforcement. This is a step in the right direction. I'm excited we can launch this program, hopefully by the first of the year.
I agree. I'm excited about that, too. This is going to be good. Commissioner Harvey, anything you want to say?
Didn't he make a motion?
No, you didn't make a
Oh,
motion.
well, I'd be happy to make a motion if you're
Yeah.
ready. So I would move to approve the proposed contract with Granicus for short-term rental monitoring and enforcement.
Second with comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I remember so often people would say, why don't we just the people at the county do more with what they've got? And what this does, this is a whole new market. Rental houses, the rental house market is big today, but it wasn't big 40 years, 50 years ago. It existed, onesie twosies. And so this is a whole new thing that's evolved, just like cell phones have evolved, just like in that time period, microwave ovens have evolved. And everybody has taken advantage of that technology and that change. And now the way people stay overnight lodge is a brand new way of doing business. I want to make sure that it's done legally and that we make it easy for the good actors to participate. But I can't expect the existing, and I wouldn't want the existing people of Weber County to fund a new way of doing business because their neighbor chooses to make their particular house a short-term rental. That the people who need to pay for it are the people who choose to be a short-term rental, and the good actors, this will be a very easy thing for them to do. However, if you're a bad actor, it'll cost you a lot of money. And that's what the enforcement piece will do. It's finally taking care of the people who have been putting up with nonsense for a long time because of the bad actors, where we can go in and help with and have a revenue stream to pay for enforcement. And so I'm looking forward to two ways we could have done. We could have done an enforcement like we're doing right now, or we could have just forgotten about it and then just kept kicking it down the road. So I'm really glad about this. So those are my comments, and with my second, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Thank you. We appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to call it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. It passes. Thanks, Bill. We appreciate your work on this. All right, this next item on our agenda, as much as we've been through today, this is monumental. Monumental today. The next item is approval of a purchase and sell agreement.
Wow.
By and between Weber County and the Land of Og. You say the Land of Og, for the acquisition of the condominium units inside of the Weber Center and the acquiring of the east parking lot. My good night. Since I've been here at the county, I'm amazed at the number of buildings we own, and we don't own the ground underneath it, or we only own part of it. And we could sit here and recite 4 or 5 different units. Well, we're cleaning one up today, and I'm excited about that. Sean?
Thank you. Commissioner, you're correct. Weber County currently owns 75% of the Weber Center, and Land of Og or Woodbury Corporation owns the other 25%. And we are purchasing those units that make up that additional 25% so that Weber County will own the Weber Center outright. That includes the purchase of the east parking lot parcel, which is also in common ownership. So we feel like this is a great step moving forward that gives us control of what we do here. Just quickly, our due diligence period on this purchase and sale agreement actually ends today, but we know this building inside and out. We are the ones that commission and do all of the studies and all of the maintenance and everything else that takes place here. So we feel like we are very much in control of what has happened here, and we don't feel like there's anything outstanding that would cause any problems through that due diligence process. Our closing date is scheduled for December 28th, and we are not going to disclose the price today because Woodbury has not signed this agreement yet, and until they do, it's still a pending agreement. So, Commissioners, that is my presentation today, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Cortland Erickson is also here. He's the one who did the majority of the work on this document and did an amazing job, and Chris Crockett did a lot of work as well. So,
Well, Commissioner Ford, you negotiated it, so you did a lot on this too.
We was involved with it a little bit, but I do appreciate the work of our attorneys and making sure all the T's were crossed and I's were dotted. But this is a great day for Weber County. If we look back over the past 4 years that I've been here, one of the first items that came up was this building, our 75% ownership, and the parking. And during that period of time, as you remember, we had an outside company come in that came to us and said they would have a potential interest in this building. We worked very hard because obviously that was a company that Ogden City would like. We'd like to have them located in Ogden, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a good decision for this corporation, Weber County Corporation, to make that transaction. So at that point in time, we made some discussions with Woodbury's, which, by the way, Randy Woodbury and his crew have been very excellent to work with, not only as owner, but also through this transaction. Now we have the ability, Chair Jenkins, to look at what we do with this building, because there was discussions during that period of time as what can we do to make this building a little more user-friendly? What can we do for parking? And now we have the opportunity for our employees to know that they've got a home for the foreseeable future, and with the intent that we'll look at using some of those funds that were set aside for possible acquisition, for renovation, and really what we want this building to look like and be available for public in the future. So I'm very excited to move approval of the purchase and sale agreement by and between Weber County and the Land of Og LLC for the acquisition of condominium units in the Weber Center and acquiring the east parking lot.
Very good. That's a motion.
Second?
And a second. Anything you want to say?
No, this is a great thing. It's nice to own your own home and the driveway connected to it, you know, completely.
I absolutely agree with that. This is a good day as far as I'm concerned. Man, it's a great thing to do on my way out the door.
You still got a few more days to work. Don't you forget it.
Just remember, your name's going to be on that forever.
That's
so,
true.
You know,
I'll put my name. I get to sign this agreement.
you get to sign it, and you can remember your Uncle Bruce.
Uncle Bruce, he signed that dang bridge up there.
You could go out and better.
Very good. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's approved.
Thank you.
Timmy, make sure you get that in the paper. We bought our house. I'm excited about that. Yeah, this is good. All right, public hearings today. We have one listed, so I need a motion.
Motion to adjourn our public meeting and convene a public hearing, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're now in a public hearing. The purpose of this public hearing today, well, there's 3 reasons on here. So we'll jump into the first one here, public hearing to consider actions on a request for approval of an amendment to Weber County Land Use Code related to short-term rentals. Bill Kobe.
Thank you. As has been mentioned, this is an item that has received a lot of attention and a lot of revision. We've worked with residents and community members. We've had public meetings. We've had open houses. We've had all kinds of wonderful opportunities to interact with residents and property owners and business owners and folks that are just generally interested in what goes on. And it's been gratifying to see the responses that we've received. With that, we don't have a whole lot to add more than there were some revisions that were made in our meeting yesterday. Those have been printed up and sent to you all last night and printed up, and they're in front of you right now and ready for your review and approval.
Questions, commissioners?
Do have one question.
Go ahead, Gage.
Bill, I did receive a phone call this morning that from a resident that said they pulled up a map that showed that a portion of Eagle Ridge subdivision was included in this, and they weren't previously in what we'd call a legal area for short-term rentals. And I told them that basically the ordinance stuck with the boundaries prior to. So was that just an old map, or?
I believe so, yes. I think that's something we looked at actually yesterday, and it's an incorrect depiction on the map. And so
all right. So Eagle Ridge would not be included.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Eagle Ridge not included.
That's right, GIS was asked yesterday to update the maps.
Okay.
We just noticed that ourselves yesterday.
I just needed to clarify that.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's my only
Appreciate you
question.
doing that,
Yep.
Gage. Commissioner Harvey, any questions?
No.
So this is a pilot that we're doing.
Well, this is the ordinance that establishes the short-term rental ordinance that we've talked about for the last period of time, and then would also overlay with the contract with Granicus that we for the enforcement. So the two really go hand in glove.
Right. And will eventually, long-term, work its way into this pilot.
Yeah, so that's
That's your intention.
that's the proposed bill. I've had a number of conversations, even as late as this morning, with Representative Cal Musselman. He would like to use this as a kind of a model for the state of Utah, and would like, depending on how that language turns out with state legislation, would encourage us to be involved with that pilot, which, again, there's no commitment to be part of the pilot, but I think we need to do that, and we need to make sure that we're keeping pace with the market out there, and again, paying attention to private property rights, at the same time respecting that, as you mentioned earlier, that, or as Commissioner Harvey, there's good players and bad players. We want to make sure the good players have an opportunity.
So Commissioner Farrar, the way I see this, what this is doing, this is kind of slowing the whole thing down a little bit. And saying, whoa, we're going to monitor it for a while, we're going to watch it, so it's kind of slowing it down. Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, well, I think the big thing this will do with the enforcement is we need to accurately understand and know without a question what our inventory is. And what we'll do with the third-party enforcement is know who the players are, the inventory, and then start a process of reaching out to that group. And again, we have a defined area now that we're going to call our legal areas, that we'll start approaching them about business licenses, and then making sure that they follow the state code, which we expect to change, which will require a sales tax license. So we're going to get control of what we have, understand who the players are, and then start slowly, and I agree with you, Commissioner, moving down that road. But I think this is the step in the right direction, so that people in the valley can at least be secure in the knowledge that there is enforcement. It's not an open gate, and they have to go through that gate before they're going to be allowed in.
Mr. Harvey?
No, it's exactly right.
All right. Well, I don't have any questions here, so I'm ready to go to the next item, and then we'll come back for public comment. Is that okay?
Perfect. Sure.
All right, next item on our public hearing is consideration of an ordinance to rezone approximately 81.1 acres to the form-based FB zone and approximately 343.1 acres to the open space OZ zone in Nordic Valley area. The rezone are to facilitate the development of the Nordic Valley Village as generally depicted in the Ogden Valley General Plan. Mr. Charlie Ewert.
Commissioners, thank you. I would also like to express my gratitude and thanks to Commissioner Jenkins. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a fun 5.5 years, and I don't think that if you're lying about hitting the ground running and doing your best, I'd hate to see what it looks like at home.
Well, Charlie, I want you to know I've enjoyed serving with you. I've not been easy on you. There's been a few times I've pushed right back at you, and you've taken it well, and you've been a real gentleman, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate working with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You're making me blush a little bit. Some of my favorite meetings has been when you say, well, that was a really good meeting, because it usually tells me that I pushed back a little bit and you pushed back harder. Very good, Commissioners. So we've got this rezone. You guys know what this is. I don't have a big presentation for you because you've seen it for the last year or so. Applicant's been in the process for about 1.5 years now. We've worked towards, number one, getting a code text amendment accomplished. We did that in August. And this is the development agreement to execute on their intentions. I think you've seen the presentation and the layout of how they'd like to see the property go. And the form-based zone that we've adopted, I think will control that very well. There is one minor change to the agreement that you have in front of you. We went ahead and we deleted Exhibit E, which is roundabout standards for those roundabouts. And in favor of Exhibit E, in replacement of Exhibit E, we wrote just a little sentence in the agreement under the roundabout section that said that the roundabouts that are built up there on the property will be built to the same standards as the roundabout that the county built, the roundabout on Skyline Drive in Uinta Highlands. And so the applicant is amenable to that. Other than that, everything that you've already seen in the agreement stays true. Do you have any questions overall about this?
Charlie, I have a question. So the one thing that sticks out here that I'm getting calls and emails on has to do with the property on the northwest side
That's right.
and the amount of units who were allowed on there.
That's right.
So when you came to us with some explanation of that, could you state that today so the people in the room, because I imagine many of them are here today specifically about that. Can you address that?
And I'm looking at a few emails right now, and most of them are, the body's almost exactly the same. So look forward to hearing this response.
Great, great. So originally, when we were working on this rezone, because the rezone is legislative, you got quite a bit of discretion on whether you allow it, you don't allow it. And so when we were looking at how many density rights were assigned to this property, we were looking at it purely through the legislative lens, meaning you guys kind of get that, you get to set that bar on how many density points are allowed for this project. As we put together the form-based code, we said, well, density is based on your base density. So you take the amount of area inside of a zone, you divide it by how many units are allowed per acre, and that's how many units you can get. And then what the applicant wanted to do with those units is take them from wherever they are and consolidate them into their base. On the northwest side of the property, there is a property, 4.65 acres, that is zoned FR3. The FR3 zone allows about 20 units to the acre if you've got...
How many?
20.
20 units to the acre.
If you've got water and sewer. 4.65 acres, 20 units to the acre, you're looking at about 93 units or so.
So more than 77.
Yes. Yeah. So when you're looking at that number, 93 units or so, why was that rezone granted? So we went back into the record, and in 2008, we could see that that rezone was granted in favor of 16 dwelling units being built on the property. What we failed to do in 2008, and nobody who was here at the time, so whoever was here failed to do in 2008, is say limited to no more than 16 units. It just said for the purpose of building 16 units. So what do you do with the remaining density? If you go back at the record, it's pretty easy for us to see that the intention was that that rezone would limit the amount of units on that 4.65 acre parcel to 16. But we didn't say it, nor did we write it down the way it needed to be. We were reading that old ordinance, myself and our legal advisors, and there's a very compelling argument that the applicant has made to say, if we come in today without the rezone, let's just pretend like the rezone doesn't even happen, and we keep the FR3 zone, and we come in today and we ask for 93 units on that property, do you have the right, county, to tell us no? And the answer is probably no. If we tell them no, they've got a reasonable argument to appeal and take us to court, because that's an administrative action, not a legislative action. The rules were already set, we just failed to set them clearly. And when we fail to set the rules clearly, the courts say we have to err our interpretation in favor of the landowner. So
The courts say that again.
we need to err our interpretation in favor of the landowner.
And the court tells us that.
That's right.
Thank you.
It needs to be written in because zoning ordinances are in derogation of property rights, the courts are clear that the plain language is what needs to prevail. And unless we plainly restrict by ordinance, we can't make the rule up afterwards. And so it needs to be a plain restriction on development rights, and it wasn't there in 2008. Now, nobody in 2008 thought we'd be really talking about transfers, at least this way. But here we are talking about transfers with old ordinances that did not say we're plainly restricting this.
Well, Charlie, as far as our legal team, they've sided with you as well. The fact that
Yeah, and
we're
in fact,
backed up against the wall here a little, and
yeah, I'd say I'm siding with our legal team because I would much rather see the lesser amount. And I don't know that
you're siding
that's
with the legal
yeah,
team.
I don't know that that's clear with the community. The planners are definitely not advocating for the extra density. We
understand.
We're just suggesting that if this goes to court, we'd be paying a lot of money to fight something that we don't have a high percent of agreement that we'd win on that argument.
all right, commissioners, questions?
None for me.
None for me. All right, Charlie, thank you.
You
Nice
bet.
presentation.
You bet.
All right, well, this is the part of the public, our open house, or not open house, our public hearing, good night, where the public gets to comment. So feel free to step forward. We'd like you to try to hold your comments down to a reasonable amount of time, 3 minutes, and please Tell us what you're thinking.
Well, first, my name is Jan Fulmer.
Thanks, Jan, for introducing yourself.
I live in Eden, 3741 Red Hawk Circle, all right? First of all, thank you for this STR ordinance. Thank you for contracting with a third party. It is the first step to get control on STRs. And commissioners, I've got more data if you want it, okay? But 98% of all STRs we've been monitoring through different apps that are available on the web have been in Ogden Valley. And that is where the issues are, not in the rest of Weber County. There are a few, but not that many. The other thing is, we have been circulating a petition, and if you want, we've got 404 signatures so far. It's not isolated instances that have occurred, and it's just not a few people who are really concerned about this. We have sent you examples of how STRs have ruined neighborhoods, communities, and have totally destroyed the economies of some cities and towns. And it really is something that has to be watched, controlled, and enforced. So thank you very much. It's a first step, and we are willing to help with anything, and I mean that sincerely. Number two, regarding Nordic Valley, I do not live there, and I do not have all the detailed information that I know that community has been tracking. But I will tell you, I worked really hard on the Ogden Valley General Plan. I volunteered my time. I actually wrote part of that plan. And yes, indeed, Nordic Valley was a resort destination area. But it's a high-level plan, and we defined it as a resort destination area basically on the valley floor, not ever anticipating it would be the size it is. All right, in addition to that, given what Charlie has just presented with a little faux pas in 2008 that happened with an ordinance or a development agreement, please do not grant any bonus development units. Bonus development units were not put in the Ogden Valley General Plan by the community, and there are more development units there now, assuming you proceed to approve this. And commissioners, that's all I want to offer, and thank you again for the STR ordinance.
So Jan, before you walk away, there's something I'd like to say to you. When you mentioned that you were on the planning commission at the time and you never thought it'd get this big, the number of units up there that they have granted to them has not changed. So how did you never think it was going to be this big?
Because when that, is this better?
That other one, the light's back on there, Jan.
Or the one with the light.
There you go.
Is this, oh, okay.
Pull it down a little.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
When we did that plan, number one, there still is not a survey of what comprises the valley floor. I know I've talked to Charlie about this, and he basically said, well, it's below a certain elevation. And remember, Wolf Creek owned Nordic, well, it was called Wolf Creek Ski Resort or something at the time. And it was right after the Wolf Creek bankruptcy that we developed that general plan. So what we knew Nordic Valley to be was what it was defined with what Steve Roberts wanted to have there as a ski area. As a matter of fact, I think there were, 15 or 17 ski-in, ski-out units that were kind of on the north side. No, we were not aware of the size that is being proposed right now. There was also more land kind of just below where the White Barn is, that was open space that someone had told me used to be a golf course or something that was zoned as open space. And at that time, we were looking at open space that resulted as a result of the Wolf Creek bankruptcy and the federal hearings we went to, because there were scads of O1 space that had to be kept that way in perpetuity.
Somebody's online. Could you please mute yourself?
Okay, of open space that had to be kept that way in perpetuity to get the clustered development density that was defined in the 2002 Wolf Creek Development Agreement. So maybe I claim ignorance, maybe I claim, geez, we really didn't know all this at the time. But that is the premise that the Ogden Valley General Plan was built on and why it was designated as a resort destination zone. So all I can ask commissioners is if this goes ahead as it stands, given the faux pas that occurred back in 2008, there are more development units there. And please do not grant any more bonus development units at the very minimum.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. State your name, please.
My name is Jim O'Brien. I live at 5447 East Fraser's Ridge Drive. And I want to thank Commissioner Jenkins, too, for your service over the last few years. I hope my presentation today doesn't throw water on your celebration. I'm here because I wanted to make sure the record shows facts regarding two procedural defects I've found in the Commission's handling of the Nordic Valley Village project since I started looking at it in August. Specifically, the first deals with the Conflict of Disclosure Act and whether Commissioner Faure has properly complied with it since the project came before the Commission in October 2021. The Act applies because Commissioner Faure holds a personal investment in land and in a partnership which gives rise to potential conflict of interest with his official duties as Commissioner in considering the project and various ramifications of it for the county. Here, Commissioner Faure owns an interest in the so-called golf course properties, which consists of 11 parcels of 50 acres of land on the flat area below the mountain. And this is the area in which, as I understand the project's detail, the Nordic Valley Village would be built. He's also a partner in the Nordic Valley Land Associates, LLC, which is a member of the three-party developer consortium, which has applied for approval to build a village. The conflict here is obvious. The Commission has been acting on an application filed by one of the Commissioners' partnership since October 2021. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The law, though, has to be complied with. If the Commission approves the village project, the golf course land will be worth millions of dollars because it's going to be the center of the village as far as I can tell from the paperwork. Now, what does the Conflict Disclosure Act require? It requires Commissioner Faure as a county officer to file a written disclosure statement under penalty of perjury with the Commission. That statement must describe the precise nature and value of Faure's property interest, which give rise to the potential conflict. Now, since October 2021, Commissioner Faure's noncompliance has unfolded in 3 stages. Between October 2021 and August 16, 2022, there was absolutely no disclosure, oral or written, in compliance with the Act. On August 16th, Commissioner Faure at one of these meetings made a cryptic oral disclosure that, quote, a family trust owns a very minor interest in adjacent land, end quote. And then, most recently, on November 20th of this year, Commissioner Faure filed a written conflicts disclosure statement. But again, here the description also is very cryptic. He writes, quote, Nordic Valley Land Associates, 16% interest in Nordic Valley land surrounding existing ski resort, end quote. Now, the big picture defects in Commissioner Faure's disclosures are threefold. He failed to disclose that the, quote, adjacent or surrounding, end quote, land that he is addressing in his paperwork actually is the land that will be developed into the village. It's not adjacent or surrounding to the project. It is the project. It's part of the project. He failed, secondly, to disclose that his partnership is a member of the developer consortium behind the Nordic Valley Village project. And then finally, he failed to disclose that even a very, quote, minor interest or 16%, end quote, land interest may be worth millions of dollars here. That's why the disclosure rules are there, so that the community can understand what he has at stake. Now, noncompliance is a serious ethics violation. His noncompliance potentially could be a Class A misdemeanor, and if convicted, would result in his removal from office. So the second issue, and I'm out of time, but if I can have 30 seconds, I'll make the record. The second issue is how the Commission has applied the recusal rules to Commissioner Faure in light of this conflict as it considers this project in which he has a partnership interest and a land interest. Commissioner Flores participated in all the Commission's deliberations regarding the village project, except for his abstaining from the zoning vote on August 16th. Even on August 16th, however, Commissioner Flores argued strongly and persuasively in favor of the zoning amendment prior to abstaining from the vote. So the point is, with recusal, what do you have to do? I think the county attorney and Commissioner Flores' position is that all you have to do potentially is abstain from the vote. I think if you look at Weber County's published guidelines affecting the Planning Commission, you'll see that recusal is a threefold set of rules. First, the conflicted commissioner should not participate or be present in the room at the time the project is discussed. Secondly, he should not discuss privately or publicly with the other commissioners or the staff this project in which he has this potential conflict. And then finally, of course, he should not vote on the matter. So from my perspective, Commissioner Flores' continuing violation undermines the legality and the political legitimacy of the Commission's approval of the Nordic Valley Village project and needs to be rectified going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Others?
My name is Douglas Dixon. I live at 3930 North, 3500 East, Liberty, Utah. I'm here to thank you personally, Commissioner Scott, I know you by, for
It's okay, Doug.
what a fun relationship in each one of you, and as well as the staff, Mr. Grover's staff. They've been very good to help me in my efforts to bring before you my petition that I want my house rights, to have an SDR, short-term rental, on my property and on my son's property. I have a written authorization from my son and his wife to represent him. I know this is a hot topic, and being where you are, it's a hot seat. So I thank you for your willingness to be where you are and what you're doing. I know that my property is currently not in the zone for the short-term rentals. But I know that my property will not conflict with the spirit and intent of having those zones. To the east of my property is the Liberty Cemetery, 3 acres. I don't bother my neighbors. They don't bother me. To the west of my property is 26 acres with 80 buffaloes on. I don't bother them, but they have ran in my yard. To the south is where my boy lives. And I've got a pasture 100 feet, I'm 200 feet plus to the next neighbor. So my petition to you is to grant the process. If I work with the directors, it's fine. I don't care. I want my home usage rights protected and preserved by you. Zoning extracts the usage of my land. So I'm a good player, and I would rather the commission have the administrative people and the planners do a reward system for the good players and have association that they work together and give information to the clerk, auditor, that they're in compliance with the requirements. I have a written stuff I would like to present to the commission after to become part of the record, if that could be allowed.
You
my
bet,
time
Doug.
is
Just
up.
bring it up here and hand it to us.
You know what? I have it on my phone. Right?
Just hand us your phone, Doug. No, no.
Look,
I'm
hey,
teasing you. That was a joke. That
You
was a
can
joke.
email it to us. Just send
Yeah,
it to
just-
the planning department, to
We'll make
Charlie
sure
or
it
Bill.
gets there. Yeah, email's good, Doug. Thank you.
Just-
I'm
feel
just-
really
bless
bad.
your
You
heart.
had those
Bless
papers in
your
your
heart.
hand, and I thought you had it written up.
I
Yeah.
feel really, really bad that I didn't bring in all my hats. I brought my white cowboy hat, my black cowboy hat, and anyway, I would have. When he put his cowboy, I thought, why didn't I bring it in?
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. All right, others who'd care to comment, please.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm Kay Hoagland.
Thanks,
Nice to
Kay.
see you again. And I live up in Eden. I've been involved, along with many others in this room, in the STR consideration, which actually dated back to June of 2020. So I'd suggest we're not slowing it down at this point. It's been quite a process, but a lot of good things have happened in the process. Thanks I would like to share to you all for reviving the November 2020 proposal that was recommended by the Ogden Valley Planning Commission. It was good to reach back and recognize the core purpose of these discussions have really been, let's get some enforcement. Let's get some enforcement and stop illegal usage that is rampant up there. Also get some tax money, please. I want to thank the entire planning department, all the way from June, who takes a lot of calls from us all, to Charlie, Bill, and the dear Scott Perks, who has now moved on to other pastures, not necessarily greener. I want to thank Rick Grover and Sean Wilkinson for their professionalism in this whole process. And again, being willing to listen to us. I want to thank the planning commissioners because they worked this hard. They have had revived discussions of this to listen again as to the concerns of the community. So they did a great job. I want to thank also Jan Fulmer. In the course of this, we have developed our own national expert in STRs. She is really a source of a lot of information. And as she said today, she does have more data. But I also want to thank the Dixons. I just met them at the open house a couple of weeks ago. And while you may not be able to do nightly rentals, I want to offer my help to you, free, pro bono legal work. You get what you pay for. In the meantime, before any further consideration, you can do monthly rentals. So I know that one of your concerns may have been going away for a 2-year trip called a mission, and that might be a solution for your concerns. Also, in reading through this provisions, the new ordinance, there's a wonderful idea there called agritourism. When I hear about a farm and wanting to share that and maybe do some other commercial work, I think that could perhaps provide some solutions for you all. But in any event, before we pop the champagne on this, I have a word of caution as someone who's followed this closely. And I also listened to Representative Musselman's legislative hearing about 2 weeks before he started talking to you in your public meetings at least. At that legislative session, he didn't have the paperwork ready yet, but his primary emphasis was, this is intensely local. The regulations of STRs are intensely local. He carved out 2 exceptions during that hearing. One was sales tax, which I fully support. People need to pay their tax on these businesses. The second thing I fully support, clarification of the 2017 statute that limited or addressed how municipalities can work with or deal with or treat internet advertising of those. But at that point, he again reiterated it's a local matter by and large for regulation. And he talked about working with the League of Cities, perhaps on a model. I gotta say, guys, I'm very worried that the model is now morphing to a pilot. And I'm starting to hear interest on jumping on that bandwagon before we've even shown we can do lawful and effective enforcement. Commissioner Jenkins, I appreciate your comments yesterday where you said, it ain't law. You've got to go through a lot of hoops before a pilot becomes law. And I don't know if that's where the pilot is going. I don't know if the intent is to make it into law. But again, I'd underscore, this needs to be a local matter. And I'm feeling a little bit of top-down creep on this. Finally, I want to say and reaffirm, let's get enforcement right and shelve the discussion of expansion. You all may be thinking there's a new industry here, but we have established older neighborhoods that we want to preserve and protect. There's a place for short-term rentals, but it's not throughout our area, and it's not 80%. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Others who'd like to testify today, please.
Can we do so over Zoom?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, my name's Mary Rio Forker. I'm at 3527 North, 3500 East in Liberty. And I just soon not be here, but I feel a little bit compelled to be here. Let me fix this. And I hate having my back to the people that I'm in sync with a lot.
Yeah, but
I
you're
think,
testifying to us.
I think we
so-
could reorganize this so everybody's included, because we should all be working together.
You're testifying to us, ma'am, not the crowd. Thank you.
Actually, I'm talking to everybody, but I appreciate what you're saying. In our communities of Liberty and Eden, I'll just write my thoughts this morning. We've been fighting to be heard for about a year now, and we would expect that an outside land developer's priorities might not be in keeping with the community he's wanting to develop. But we also expect our government, whose salaries we paid to safeguard the taxpayers' rights, would work for us. We didn't expect to find that our Weber County Planning Department and elected commissioners would seemingly support the interests of the outside land developer over the desires of our community. Both the builder and our government are pushing to rezone and overbuild in contrast to and against the desires of the overall community. Unless modified, this build-out plan will affect our personal property rights and taxes, the future ability of already scarce water supplies, and infrastructure capacity. It will create pollution of various types, traffic issues, and impede the future availability of local residents to afford a home in the community. The views, the dark sky designation, the local wildlife, agricultural and open lands, and the neighborhoods near Nordic Valley Resort will all be negatively impacted. We need our government to work with and for our people. Their families settled this valley. They live and work here, raise their families here, and protect and love these communities. So our constitutional laws of Utah and our great nation are in agreement. All men have the inherent and inalienable right to enjoy and defend our lives and liberties, to acquire, possess, and protect property, to protest against wrongs, and to communicate freely their thoughts and opinions. No law should be passed to abridge or restrain the freedom of speech. I would say that allowing only 2 or 3 minutes per property owner to express our concerns is restraining our freedom of speech and is disrespectful to the public you are paid to work for. All power comes from the people, and the power people give to government to exercise on their behalf is strictly limited. Government officials must respect their oaths to uphold the Constitution, and we, the people, must make sure they do. So governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. So whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, most likely to affect their safety and happiness, which is why you've been getting a lot of pushback from the community. And I really think it should be listened to. What kind of government do we want in order to protect this beautiful rural valley and grow it responsibly? We need to insist on government employees and elected officials who are honest, truly transparent, and who understand that they work for the people. When we work together, the end results are more beautiful, considered, balanced, sustainable, and everybody wins. This valley is an Eden, and we should use our liberties to protect it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Others who would like to comment today?
I'm sorry?
I'm saying others who would like to comment. Mr. Byrd.
You know, first of all, Scott, I really have to agree with what Shelley said. I don't know if you can hear me, but I've only got into this act about a year ago and have really appreciated the respect you've given me, even though we disagree. You've put in a lot of work, I know that, and it hasn't gone unrecognized, and I very much appreciate it myself.
Thank you.
So enjoy your retirement. I wish I could enjoy mine. I've been running back and forth here. First of all, my name is Jim Byrd. I'm from Huntsville. I live on Old Snow Basin Road, and I live in a community on that road. In the new agreement or ordinance on STRs, which is one thing I'm going to speak, there was a section that addressed fractional homes and not being allowed as short-term rentals. I spoke with Bill Kobabe on this because I really appreciated that. I also asked him to not only have fractionals, but to include LLCs. And the reason, in fact, I wish you'd put that back in, or at least consider it. The reason is because LLCs are being used to circumvent the laws and regulations on STRs. I did a quick Google search on how to avoid STR laws, and I came across one that that basically said, well, let's see, first of all, it's about the shorttermshop.com. Short-term rentals are amazing ways to start and make money. You need to figure out how to respect the laws but still make money. So here are 3 tips on how to get around short-term rental restrictions. 1, set up a business. Okay, what is that business? An LLC. You have to name a person who lives in the flat, and if you then list the house on a website, each guest becomes an occupant. You're going to have to get an LLC, and so when you go to the seller, you can say to the property is in a business name. By the way, in our community now, we have a house that is the only one up there that is an LLC. It submitted architectural plans and then built around them. They went against the architectural plans. They basically have said, sue us. It is an LLC. If you look at the house, it is being positioned, I believe, in my personal belief, as a short-term rentals. Now you know how to get around legal challenges surrounding short-term rentals. I'm quoting from their site. Your next big test is not to mess it up. So the one thing you shouldn't do is go around to the property manager, which we have now, that you're renting out the property. Instead, tell them you have a corporation and clients staying in your flat. You really want to keep the word to my clients because essentially they are your clients. Remember, if someone contracts to stay in your apartment in your company's name, then there are your guests or clients. Yeah, there was a section, I think, as I read on fractionals, is essentially, or maybe Bill told me this, is fractionals or LLCs that are acting as short-term rentals. And I really would consider you talking to the county attorneys on whether you could reinsert that. Otherwise, you're going to be opening up just ways of circumventing it. Thank you very much. I did have a comment on the Nordic Valley, but my 3 minutes are up. And again,
Thank you.
Scott, enjoy your retirement.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Others who have, would like to comment?
Twice.
Jan, this is your second time up.
Am I allowed?
Sure, we're not gonna shut you down.
Thank
Just
you.
make it quick. Be fair.
With respect to Jim Bird, one of the HOA leaders in this community where this fractional ownership home is going to be built, I called up the number to see how I could own part of it. And I can own 1/8 of it for a mere $330,000, plus about $5,000 a year for maintenance and taxes, etc. Very, very lovely business model. I then said, well, I get 44 days since I'm a 1/8 owner. If I can't make some of those 44 days, can I rent it out, sub-rent it out? Of course you can. And you can collect whatever money you make. It's a mess. And what I know the work Jim has done in looking into this, and I just hope that we can get something in place sooner rather than later. There have been articles published in Park City on fractional ownership. I don't know how they're executing this or enforcing it, but they have restricted them to certain areas. They haven't stopped them. But it really is an issue. So please, commissioners and Weber County Planning, I know this is a challenge, but if we can nip this in the bud, it will save a lot of work and time in the long run. And thank you.
You bet. Others?
I'll do a quick presentation here.
You bet.
Plug this in properly. And if it's possible, I'd like to ask for 5 minutes. I do speak on behalf of several residents as a group,
Who are you representing?
the Nordic Valley residents.
Oh, okay.
And
Is that okay with you too, if I allow him
I'll
5
be
minutes?
concise and very brief.
Okay. Introduce yourself so we know who you are.
My name is Doug Weaver. I live on 3701 Viking Drive. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
The other mic. There you go.
This one? Okay. And I'm a professional engineer registered in the state of Utah. Can you guys see that presentation?
We can.
Okay, thank you.
It's up here too, should be.
I just want to say my opinion on this with what I've seen so far is I feel like the process, and I respect all of you and I've appreciated the time we spent talking, okay, but I feel like the process has maximized the development rights for the developer without adequate mitigation for the residents. I think that's a theme that I've seen. Our property rights are not being respected. There's the lack of buffers, the lack of consolidating the whole entire development at the base and not getting it all off the hillside violates our property rights. I'd also like to point out that what Charlie mentioned earlier about he omitted the origin of those development rights that the 16 and 77 and 93 we're talking about. It came from the FV3 zone, part of the ski area. It came from 113 acres. They determined 44.4 acres were eligible. That means they were less than 40% slope. They took 44.4, added it to the 4.65 acres for the new lot, the FR3 one that's zoned. Get 49 acres, divided it by 3, and they got 16 development rights. I have not heard that on the work sessions for you or for the one for the Ogden Valley Planning Commission, and Charlie's presented at both of those 3 times, and I've not heard that history. It's very important. There was not 93 development rights. They didn't exist. There was only 16. You can easily defend that in court. I support the ski area and a reasonably sized development at the base area. I'm grateful for the measures that have already been included in the development agreement. And I truly say that. I appreciate Laurent your time that you spent talking with me and others, the trail access, the buffers that are already included in there. I truly am grateful for that, and I appreciate the things that you guys have put in there, but I'm simply asking for reasonable mitigation measures and stronger wording regarding permanent public trail access. And many in the community agree with me, as you've seen from the emails that have been sent. The county has failed to require the applicant to follow the same mitigation measures that were required when Snow Basin and Powder Mountain were rezoned to DRR1. It's inconsistent and conflicts with the general plan. It's in opposition to nearly all of the public comments received for this project. The applicant asked for a new DRR2 zone. That's what they applied for. The county changed this to the form-based village zone. Okay, we're putting it, they were gonna go in one box, and we changed the box. We're gonna put it in a different box. The rules changed based on what box those units go into. The new box, the F form-based village zone, does not provide the same mitigation measures designed for the ski areas that are next to residential areas. DRR1 was written specifically, there's mitigation measures all over the place in there for what happens when you build next to residential areas. Okay, I'm going to talk about that. There's reasonable mitigation measures that I'd like to see implemented are legal public trail access easements through parcel 3 and through parcels on the north side of the ski area. 100-foot buffers around the entire perimeter of the project, which is present in DRR1, where adjacent to residential lots. Reduction of the density, 80 development rights due to slopes over 40% grade. I sent that in the emails to you. I'm not going to be able to touch on that today, but the calculations are there and it's consistent and shows that shouldn't be considered for development rights. Preservation of open space by placing it into a land trust. Capping the maximum number of development rights that can transfer to the village. Right now, the development agreement shows no maximum. If parcel 3 is allowed to be developed, mitigation measures are needed there too. On the image here, B is parcel 3. The easements I think are needed are these blue lines. If they develop 28 homes on parcel 3, when you have new ownership, you're going to have problems. Landowners aren't going to want people going through their property. I believe Laurent honestly wants to allow people to go through there, but just saying we have access through there is great, okay? But I don't want to stand before a court or a policeman in 10 years because I'm walking through that property because we didn't put good legal access agreements in there so that, and Trails Foundation Northern Utah can hold that easement. It's very easy to be done. Laurent can do it. They could be even flexible. Let them move around the future development. I'm not opposed to that. But get from our residents public access from the public streets into the ski area through parcel 3. So when future development happens, we don't have to fight this again as land ownerships are changed and areas are subdivided. Sorry. Laurent has repeatedly said this area that's crossed off, he will not develop in it, the area above Viking Drive. But the development agreement says nothing about this, not a word. They have the whole parcel to do whatever they want on, whether it's 8 units or 28, that's been debated recently. Please restrict it, and if he wants to do that orally, please allow him to put that wording in there. Just make it legal, okay? So it's not messy. We're not debating this 2008 ordinance 14 years ago. Just put it in there. And I don't think it'll take much time, and I don't think Laurent's opposed to some of these things. They originally asked for this area of the circle, a whole bunch of development on parcel 3, and then it was restricted to 6 to 8 units. And it's gone back and forth from the work session back and forth. And Laurent even, the Ogden Valley Planning Commission, several commissioners, the public, and Laurent even said he didn't need those additional 20 units on parcel 3. He was okay with 8. But I understand in the work session last week, you guys allowed them to do 28. I don't understand where that's coming from. Nobody wants it, except somehow in that discussion, we're back to 28. It's a huge impact on the neighborhood to put 28 homes on there versus 8. And really, there shouldn't be any. If you look at the DRR1 code, there's a distinct code about open space on resort development. 60% of the net developable acreage is supposed to be designated open space for DRR1 and FE3 zones. We're in an FE3 zone on the ski area. And I'm not going to go through all this, but I'm referencing the code here. I don't expect you to read it all, but I pulled the code right out this morning. Net developable acreage equals total acreage subtracting land unsuitable for development. Unsuitable development has a definition right there. Okay, R3 zones. We're also talking about FR3 zones. They also are only supposed to be net developable under 30%. In the DRR1 code, the one that the box we did not put this resort development in, says transfer development rights shall shall be not granted to areas containing slopes of 40% or greater in forest zones. This includes FV3, the majority of the ski area. Here is a map of the dark red showing slopes over 40%. It's most of the ski area. Surprise, it's a ski area. Okay, I calculated, and I sent this to all to you guys via email. I calculated the actual acreage, and then I did a slope analysis. It's super simple to do. And I got 249 acres of slopes less than 40% grade. Let's do some quick math. Project total is 489 acres. Just assume there's a little discrepancy, 510, 490. Don't worry about that. And Charlie's aware of that with the survey acreage being not accurate completely. Net developable acres are 249. Open space required, if it's DRR1, is 60%, 149 acres. A conservation easement is required on 75 of those acres. So the land left is 100 acres. The base area village is 81 acres. That means they have 19 more acres they can build on. Parcel 3 is like 83-ish, okay? They can only develop on 19 if you're following the DRR1 code. And what I'm saying is, this is how the rest of the ski areas were governed. They have all these rules that you guys made Powder Mountain and Snow Basin do. They couldn't use slopes over 40% for their density calculations. They're going to come to you. I guarantee they're going to say, hey, how come Nordic Valley gets to do this and we don't? You put them in this box, we're in this box. What's going on? You need to be equal. That's a property rights issue. Big one. Big dollars we're talking about here. It's very inconsistent. You guys need to fix this and be consistent how you're dealing with everyone who wants to develop in this valley.
So you're way over your 5 minutes, right?
I understand. I have very important things to say, and if you're available, I'll continue. I'm trying to be very concise.
We have others who'd like to speak.
Maybe have my 3 minutes?
Well, okay, keep going.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Parcel number 3 is 83 acres. 64 of those acres should be open space. I already said the rest of this.
Let's see.
Buffers, okay? If you go in the DRR1 code, there's a whole bunch about buffers where ski resorts are next to residential areas. 100-foot minimum buffer is required next to residential areas. It applies to all the other ski areas in this county. And back to the original thing, if you guys allow the 77 additional units to be granted to the Nordic Valley developer in that FR3 parcel, that's 4.65 acres, you guys are allowing 77 new development rights to be created in the Ogden Valley. The Ogden Valley plan wants to cap those. That's the whole purpose of transfer developable rights. You're allowing 77 new ones, okay? That's $40 million. $500,000 a lot? That's $40 million you're giving them as a gift. How about the residents get some of that money to build some parks, buy some open space, something? It's very clear that only 16 development rights were transferred by Ordinance 2008-21. This should be legally defended by the county. That's the right thing to do. A transfer development right ordinance for all zones in the Ogden Valley needs to be established before this rezone application can be approved. This rezone involves FR3, FV3, CVR1, O1, and FBV. There's no development rights ordinance for those zones. For DRR1, there is an ordinance. It's very clear. If it's not crystal clear, the county is at risk of future legal disputes over accountability of development rights. We're disputing the 2008-21 ordinance right now. If it's clear, we don't have to debate this in the future. And I'm not trying to prevent this whole thing from happening, right? I'm not fighting the development. We all agree. I think most residents agree. Let them build a village at the bottom, a reasonable development. But don't take everything. Don't take the open space. Don't take more development rights than you're granted. Don't build parcel 3 on the hillside. It goes up to 6,200 feet on the hillside. We're trying, the whole purpose of this project was to consolidate everything at the base area. And you guys are allowing them to build more units up on the hillside, right above our neighborhoods. And it's going to tear it up. It's going to tear it up. You know, it's steep slopes up there.
You're out of time. A
Okay.
second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What was your name again?
Doug Weaver.
We need his presentation.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, could you forward that to us, that presentation?
I can. Yes, I
Yeah.
sent it to Charlie earlier.
Yeah, send it to Charlie.
and I
The
can do that.
presentation you've sent to Charlie?
The presentation I just showed you, I sent to Charlie before the meeting this morning.
Great, thank you. We just need to make sure that we're tracking it. Thank
I
you.
understand. Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you guys
Appreciate
very
it.
much. I understand you have a very tough job and hard decisions. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else who'd like to comment today? We'd love to hear you. Yes, online. Could you introduce yourself?
Is this for me?
Yes, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Greg. My name is Greg Friedman. I am a resident of Trappers Ridge up in Eden, and I am grateful for the work that you all have put into this particular project. I think both people that wish to rent and people that are opposed to renting look for good regulations. And one of the things that I think is ironic is I think that the good actors within the I'll call them renter community, are on the same side as those that would like to very significantly limit the rentals that are out there. As written, I think there are a couple of holes that exist within the specific draft that I'd like to ask the commission to consider. And the two that jump out to me primarily, one, there is well, actually, I don't want to limit it to just the two, but some are bigger than others. First, there is within the draft a limit of 10 people within a rental. That seems to be a somewhat arbitrary number, since we have some houses that are 3 bedrooms, some that are 6, 7, 8 bedrooms. Obviously, putting 14 people into a 3-bedroom house has the tendency to create an issue that probably does not exist for a house that's built for a much larger population. So that number just, again, seems quite arbitrary, and I think that a more formulaic approach could better serve the community. The second issue I'd like to bring up is that within the draft, and frankly, this is one that I feel like could serve everybody, there does not seem to be any mechanism which would allow for the professionalization of short-term rentals. And by that, I mean the onus and everything that needs to be done seems to need to be done by the individual homeowner. And that seems as though you're going to be asking those in charge of enforcement to basically be herding cats. Whereas if a professional management company, and there are several within the valley that have very good reputations, were allowed to create, for lack of a better word, a master list of things that, of properties they handle, it seems to me as though both the county and any other enforcement mechanism would have a much significantly easier time of trying to corral and enforce existing regulations. Those are really the primary things that jump out to me. I would ask the commission to consider those, along with some of the significant licensure issues that have been put in place, seemingly for good reason, but at the same time, they seem to at certain times be overreaching, whether it is requests for floor plans, requests for sprinkler plans, requests for trash can locations, all those sorts of things. Again, I think if a professional management company could be involved, that would tend to have a much better benefit. Those are my comments. I appreciate the time. I know you're in a no-win situation. And I think that this act, if done correctly, would benefit both people that want to rent and people that have significant concerns.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Is there somebody else online? It seems like there were 2 of you. Appears that that's it. Very good. Anybody else in the audience who's changed their mind like to get up now?
Excuse me, I'm online,
Very
and I
good.
didn't see how you raised your hand, but I'd like to say something quickly.
Yes, could you state your name, introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Beth Keswick. I live on Viking Drive. I have sent numerous emails, etc., over the past couple of years on this topic. But I just wanted to tell you something, and I have sent you an email yesterday. I don't know if you've had time to read it, but I was sitting at my kitchen table yesterday, and I looked up, and there was a skier in my yard. And So I opened the sliding doors and I asked who he was. And he said, my name is Zach Smith. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing here? He says, I got lost. I lost my bearings. And he was coming down one of the new big runs, etc. But I guess the point of what I'm saying is when you talk about property rights and etc., I think it works on both sides. And while you can see from my emails, I do support exactly all the points that Doug's made. I would like to emphasize that we need a dedicated public access corridor, easement of trails, something to guide skiers so that they don't end up in backyards like mine. And I truly felt empathetic to this man. He was very flustered, very confused, didn't even know which way to get back to the resort. It's tough terrain up there, and especially if you're not an expert skier. So I hope that you take all of these comments, especially Doug's excellent presentation that we all of us, especially along Viking, endorse. We've talked to Laurent personally about this and felt very good about those conversations. So thank you for your time, for allowing us to speak. I certainly hope that you can keep in mind the people.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Is there anybody else online? Okay. Others in the room? All right, appears we're ready to go back to a...
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to adjourn our public hearing and reconvene as a public meeting.
Second.
Very good, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're now in a regular meeting, and no more public comment will be taken. Very good. So the first item on our agenda is ordinance 2022-32, amend the Weber County Land Use Code related to short-term rental. Commissioner Faure, this is kind of your portfolio. Well, it depends on how you look at this, but you've spearheaded it.
Yeah, we've kind of
So, yeah.
taken a lot of comments on this. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would move to approve ordinance 2022-32, which is an amendment to the Weber County Land Use Code related to short-term rentals, and with a comment.
Yes.
And so this has been an ordinance that, again, as I stated earlier, has been a long time coming. I think this is the first step that we need to start getting control. There's no question that STRs have a major impact on communities, and it's our intent to make sure that we reduce as much as possible that impact, at the same time providing the opportunity for recreation and for those people that want to use this in a legal manner, the ability to do so. I think this ordinance is may not be the final step, but it's the first step that we go to.
Very good. We have a motion.
Second with a comment.
Yes.
Bill, Mr. Kobe, can you come to the mic? You were the presenter on this. Does this ordinance that I just seconded, I just want to make certain, this is dealing with mostly, it deals basically with enforcement. It doesn't deal with expansion at all, does it?
That's absolutely correct.
It does not deal with expansion. That was the comment I'd heard. So it's just enforcement. Thank you. That was my only question.
We're locking it into, per the recommendation from the Planning Commission, to the way things are right now and not looking at expansion to additional zoning at all.
Thank you.
Well, Bill, let me ask you, what's your recommendation on people who feel like they want to be grandfathered into this? They've been outside the area, but have rented their homes or want to continue, to Doug's Dixon's point.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's an interesting question. It's something that we're going to have to look into as we go forward with the enforcement side of things to see if it's a real problem. Then we can take steps to address the problem sides of things. But I think if there are good actors who, like Mr. Dixon, who may be somebody who deserves or is worthy of some additional consideration, we can look at that as well. The way the code is written right now, it's kind of narrowly defined in its scope and doesn't allow for a whole lot of wiggle room as far as things outside of the zoning where it's allowed. And that's done for a reason, and that's so that we can catch the bad actors in as broad a net as we can. Going forward, it's worthy of consideration, I think.
Yeah, but worthy of consideration, that's going to take a legislative action.
Correct.
Yeah, and see, if that's the case, I don't know if I want to vote on this today, because I want to make sure that somebody like him's able to opt in if they want to.
You know, there are places outside of, you know, you talked about grandfathered in. And to me, it's important that the bad actors is really the ones that are really the problematic ones. This, to me, represents a step regarding the bad actors. That's where I want to clamp down, but I don't want to take people's property rights away from them.
For sure. There's a lot of moving parts in this. The state code is being looked at right now with regard to amnesty and the areas where, the residential areas where it can and maybe should be applied. And we're going to have to respond to that in a few months when the new legislation from the state comes down. So if and when that ever happens. So this is, as someone said, this is an iterative process. This is step one. This is not the final end-all be-all of anything, so.
I understand that, but you made the comment, if we pass this today, somebody like Doug is outside.
That's correct.
Looking in instead of inside looking out.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a comment.
Please.
And, you know, I totally understand that issue that was brought. I mean, I looked at putting in an amnesty protection in this particular ordinance, and based upon the Planning Commission's recommendation, I declined doing that. But it is my intent, and I think that Mr. Kobe stated it well, as we look at state legislation coming down and amnesty and pilot programs, I want to make sure that those people that have an opportunity to have an STR that meet guidelines, those guidelines that again can protect their neighbors and certain circumstances, not everybody, but there'll be certain circumstances that we need to create that program. But again, I think, as I said before, I think this is the first step, not the final step, so.
Yeah.
But I understand your concern, Mr. Chair.
Sure, I do understand. Fact is, we vote on this today and send it through, that it's a done deal. Mr. Harvey, any comment there?
You know, I want to take steps. But I don't want to take away property rights for people. I'm just telling you where I'm thinking right now. I hate to see unintended consequences.
You should be a legislator. It happens all the time.
That's the name of the game.
You want to put this on hold for a couple of weeks while we look at it and do it again, or? I don't know. What do you think?
I'm going to let Commissioner Harvey make the decision on that. I'd like to get it done, but.
Well, I'm not opposed to voting on it, but I do not want, I mean, we've got somebody sitting in front of us that's made us an official request.
Who I have a profound respect for. I want to hold date certain till January 10th.
Is that a motion?
Motion.
All right, I'll second that.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
No.
Oh, that's an ordinance.
That's an ordinance.
You should call that, Craig. I'm sorry. That's 2022-32.
If I understand correctly, it's being held until January 10th, but we also have a motion that was made and seconded. We'll need to dispose of that one.
Oh,
We have a second to my.
no, we didn't have a second that. I'm sorry. I didn't
thought I-
recognize the motion. He didn't second it.
I thought I seconded with comment.
All he did was comment. Oh, I messed
right.
that whole thing up. Okay, well.
You're okay.
No.
We better take
We
that
gotta
motion.
start over on that. So, we had a motion and a second. At the end of your comment, do you want to withdraw that motion?
I'll withdraw my second.
Yeah, your second. Okay, I'll call the motion dead then.
Okay.
Okay, so then to the motion that was made, Craig, roll call vote.
Wait, is that a roll call vote to hold it?
No, it's just tabling the matter until the.
No roll call.
Well, you
in
say it's
January.
not a roll call, but it's on the agenda as a roll call.
If you were passing the ordinance, we would do a roll call.
Well, yeah, but what if we didn't pass it? What if it failed?
It's
It'd
just
still be a roll call.
It would just be a motion to table. You can always do a roll call if you would like.
That's the point there.
I don't think it hurts to do a roll call.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't hurt.
Doesn't matter.
Well, we've taken the vote, so let's not worry about it. All right.
I think if it's
January
wrong,
10th, that's being held to. That was the motion, and that's what passed. All right. Second item here today is request for the ordinance to rezone 81 acres to form-based FB zone and approximately 343.1 acres to the open space 01 at Nordic Valley. The rezones are to facilitate the development of the Nordic Valley and the general generally depicted in the Ogden Valley general plan. So Charlie, we got a ton of questions for you up here. Could you come up here so we can ask you some? At least I do. I'm assuming
Yeah.
you guys have some too. So, Mr. Doug Weaver come up here and give us quite a presentation, and I'm speaking of my own opinion now, but he represented the fact that in the zoning that you've represented today to us, we're way outside the bounds. How would you reply to that?
I don't mean any disrespect to Mr. Weaver, but I think there's quite a bit of factual inaccuracies in that presentation. I don't know
Okay.
how to better state it.
Well, that's what I wondered, but so to your best knowledge as our planner, and you're the guy we rely on here, we respect you a lot in your opinion. We're in line exactly the way we should be.
Let me present it slightly differently.
Please.
And as planners, our job is to report to you and to be your advisors on policy decisions and these kinds of matters. And so we need to be objective in doing so. We're not here to defend the developer any more than we're here to defend the particular property owner. We're just here to try and recommend good policy for you. Good policy will move development rights off the mountainside and cluster them into a smaller footprint. I think on that matter, Mr. Weaver and I are in agreement there. Where we're in a disagreement on is how many density rights are allocated to that hillside. There's the assumption from not just Mr. Weaver, he gave the presentation, but there are a lot of folks out there who believe that hill slopes need to be reduced when you're doing density calculations. However, if you do a standard subdivision, there is no code that requires you to reduce hill slopes. And as a developer, if I were a developer, I've got to think, as a planner, I've got to think through the development's motivation, the developer's motivation. And the developer's motivation is to turn a profit. And if it makes more sense for me to divide that property side up into a whole bunch of 3-acre lots with mountain road standards, it's a reduced road standard that we have adopted. If it makes more financial sense for me to do that, I should do that. And if I do that, there's no ski resort, there's no open space, it's 100% built out, 1 unit per 3 acres all over that mountainside, which equals roughly 488 units if we're not counting the extra 77 units of that 4.65 acre parcel. And so when I think about what can happen on this property if the county does nothing, and that is an option, you cannot approve this rezone. If you do not approve this rezone, 100% of that hillside is slated for development according to our zoning ordinances. Now, we've tried to mitigate that by creating a cluster subdivision ordinance. But in order to compel a developer who is motivated by the bottom line to do the cluster subdivision, they need to get the same amount of development rights or density rights out of the property as they would otherwise if they were doing a standard subdivision. Now, that's not always the case. You know, it costs a lot of money to build roads on steep hillsides. And so maybe if we were looking at a developer's bottom line, maybe a small haircut. But if you're doing a cluster subdivision, you're trying to motivate the developer to move things into a smaller footprint. And so giving them a haircut doesn't make any sense. They're going to either develop the entire hillside or they're going to move it into a smaller footprint. It just depends on what their bottom line tells them, right? So what I'm telling you is if you do nothing today, that development is going to happen at that density, at those development impacts. And it'd be even greater impact to those who live on Viking Drive, who I think are those who are primarily opposed to this particular development. Okay, so instead of allowing that to happen, we are working with the developer to move the vast majority of the development rights that are on that hillside into the village base. Village base includes that upper western parcel, the 4.65 acre parcel that we were talking about. It's always been part of the plan. Okay, and the only thing remaining on the rest of the hillside is potentially 28 units. And the applicant has said, I don't even know if I really want to do those 28 units. But I want the opportunity to do it if it makes more sense financially and under the market. So yes, we are reducing the impact to the community by going in this direction. There is no code requirement to reduce development rights based off of slopes. That was removed from the code years ago. And so here we are now.
Very good, very good.
I've got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
When you're done.
I'm done.
He spoke of DRR1 and DRR2. Charlie, can you speak to that as well?
The county doesn't have a DRR2 zone. The applicant's original request was for a DRR2. I suspect if DRR2 came to fruition, we'd have a lot of the same concerns that we have now. We did work with the applicant on trying to implement the tenets of the general plan. And the tenets of the general plan talks about village areas. And we've developed a tool already, we had pre-developed a tool to help create these village areas in a consistent manner. A manner that automatically, just by the virtue of the tool, builds in impacts, mitigation of impacts for development. It creates a village node and then it slowly dissipates that density out into these rural areas. As you guys noticed and saw when you adopted the Nordic portion of the form-based village ordinance. Just by virtue of the existence of that ordinance, we are mitigating the effects or the impacts in ways that I don't think a lot of folks are giving that ordinance its due credence. That ordinance actually, I feel, is far less clunky. It's going to take a lot less staff to administer than these form-based codes, or excuse me, than these DRR1 codes. And so we asked the developer to use that so that we can provide some level of consistent regulatory mechanism in each village that branches across each village. The flavor, the architectural standard, the way it's laid out, that's all different for each village. But the tool used for planners to apply standards, it's all the same, and that's going to help you cut down on future administrative overhead when it comes to implementation of these rules.
Question? And respectfully, so that we're working for the people, they talked about, he showed a picture of a pathway, active transportation type pathway around there. I know that in some of the discussions and work sessions, that a pathway or things are discussed there. With respect to the presentation that we just saw from Mr. Weaver, are those transportation, are they written in? Just remind us of those things that we've already gone off, just please.
Yeah, so typically we don't get, I think what Mr. Weaver is asking for are easements. Typically we don't get easements for trails unless it's inside of a platted subdivision. So if Mr. Jouffre or any of his team are to develop any of those 28 units above Viking, we would get in that, on that plat, we would get easements for those pathways conveyed to us. There's a reason why we don't want to create a legal description for those pathways right now. It's because they can change, and they should be able to change. In the agreement, if you turn to Exhibit C, you've got an open space and trails exhibit that is there. And it says up on the hillside, the lines that are shown there shall be provided. And so the trails are shown there. In fact, it's more trails than what the applicant had actually suggested. We're showing on that exhibit, we're showing accesses to each of the points that Mr. Weaver pointed out, plus probably a dozen more accesses to the property, including on the exterior perimeter for the potential of the county to work with the Forest Service to create cross property line accesses, maybe even another second access to Skyline Trail, or even another access that wraps around over to the North Ogden Divide. So they're there, and by virtue of the existence of the development agreement being recorded to the property, they'll remain there. And the county will be the mechanism or the enforcement body to make sure that happens.
Thank you. This satisfies my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Commissioner Faur?
None for me, thanks.
Very good. Well, we've seen this over and over and over and over for 2 years now. So it's just been like mud or clay or whatever you want to call it, as it's been molded and looked at. And so I'm satisfied also. With that then, thanks, Charlie. With that then,
I might just point out something that's.
Go ahead.
That's the original amount of density requested in this project was huge. The number of potential units that could have been built was hundreds more. He had the rights to do hundreds more than what this is. And I've been impressed that the amount of outreach that this developer has, Mr. Joffre has there, and I commend him for that. He's always been very forthright with the public, and as I've watched over the last 6 years, watching developers and some of the characteristics, I've been very impressed. I've learned he seems to be genuine and earnest, and I appreciate your integrity, Laurent. Thank you.
very good. Well, I'm open to a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, real quick,
Yes.
with the tabling of that prior ordinance, the ordinance number that we're going to discuss right now is 2022-32.
Thank
Okay.
you. And I'll drop that down then. I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve ordinance 2022-32, which revolves around the 81.1 acres of form-based zone and approximately 343.1 acres of open space 01 zone in Nordic Valley area.
Very good. We have a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd ask for personal privilege.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that we remind everybody in this commission, has been pointed out, that I've done in every other meeting that's involved Nordic, that I do have a small interest. 16% divided by 5 is what the technical number is, because it's a trust, just to be perfectly upfront. Under Utah Code 17-16A-8, which you're very familiar with, state law allows me, after I filed disclosure, which I did in November, to participate and to vote on the matter if I so decide. But I can also ask for recusal. Now, under county ordinance that we have under rules, it's different than state, and it's not planning commission that was suggested by a previous speaker. But what it does require is I ask for your permission as the two commissioners to recuse myself from the vote. So being consistent, and again, I don't think this comes as any secret. Tim Vandernak's been diligent, I think, in the 4 or 5 articles that he's printed in the Standard. He's brought that at every time. So this does not come as a surprise to the community. It's public information, it's in disclosures. There was no involvement on my part with the Planning Commission at any point, any of our work meetings, discussions. I don't believe there was any ever votes taken, but again, you were fully aware of my involvement and interest. But with that, nevertheless, I would request your permission to recuse myself from this vote to avoid any potential or appearance of conflict, which again, it comes down under that Utah code. I've spoken with Ledge Research at the state. Recusal serves the purpose of giving public notification as well. So I'd request that under county ordinance, not state.
Yeah, so Mr. Crockett, under county ordinance, I've never dealt with under this. Do you need a motion from us?
It's actually part of your rules of procedure, so separate than the rules of order from the Planning Commission. But what it states, it says, unless a member of the County Commission seeks recusal from voting on any question where the vote would constitute a conflict of interest, and that recusal is consented to by a majority of the remainder of the County Commission, all members of the County Commission, including the chair, shall vote upon every question, ordinance, or resolution. So yes, it does require the consent of the other participating members of the commission.
Okay. Well, so as I clear these off the table one at a time, I'm going to second that motion of Commissioner Harvey. So we now have that in front of us as a motion and a second. Now, to Commissioner Frohr's effort to recuse himself, can I just ask for his approval, or do you want me to take it in the form of a motion?
I think you can just ask, and we would just note it on the minutes that there was a consent.
Is it okay with you if Commissioner Frohr recuses himself?
It is, with a comment.
Yeah. We all want to talk.
I appreciate the sentiments of this crowd. I realize sometimes it's very hard to get up in a public hearing, in a public way, to get up and speak. The processes that have been set forth by the people, we follow those. That's important. There are reasons why we have certain process. But I also want to say publicly, especially with my history of Mr. Frohr from when he first came in. You gotta remember, I was for the other guy. But never in front of people or behind the scenes or in closed doors or in closed sessions or at any time have I witnessed or seen any self-service where we hasn't been absolutely upfront, forthright. I know Mr. Frohr to be Commissioner Frohr to be a man of integrity. And he's been a great servant, as well as Commissioner Jenkins, to our commission. And I'm grateful to know him. I count him as one that I look up to and admire. And that's what I have to say about that. So if he wants to recuse himself, I'm fine, Mr. Chair, but those are my feelings.
Thank you. I feel the same way, and I give my okay too. So Commissioner Frohr will allow you to recuse yourself. And so with that being the case, I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Thank you for that.
Oh, hold on. That's an ordinance. Will you call that roll call vote?
Roll call vote for ordinance 2022-32. Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
The esteemed, honored, revered, he who will be missed immeasurably.
Oh, thank you.
Our friend and mentor, Commission Chair Scott K. Jenkins.
Aye. Very good. So this brings us to the next one, and this is one that everybody's really concerned about. That's a request for the approval of the zoning development agreement at Nordic Valley Village. An agreement regulated the development of the Nordic Valley Village's areas. Charlie? Anything you want to say on this?
I think I've said enough. Anything you need me to say?
I have to. No, I haven't. So Commissioner Harvey, you got any questions on this? So Commissioner Farrar, I'm assuming you want to recuse yourself on this vote as well?
That would be my intent, Mr.
And I
Chair.
have no problem with that either.
I have no problem with that either.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you bet. All right, so we've been over this and over this and over this, and I understand the points that were made today. I'm ready to vote.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve the zoning development agreement between Weber County and Nordic Valley Village.
I second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Very good. All right, commissioners, our work's done today. Comments? It's done.
Done.
How about a motion to adjourn?
Oh, we've got a couple of comments first, I think,
Oh, do you?
if you would accept them.
Oh, I'll accept them.
So, Mr. Chair, let me just say, we know that good things all must come to an end. We know that when it comes to an end, we look back and look at the good times as well as the bad times, but I do want to make a very public statement that, first off, it's been a pleasure serving with you, not only at the state legislature, but here as a commission. And I would agree with Commissioner Harvey's comments that everything that we've done and attempted to do has been in the public's best interest. And at times we haven't always agreed on that, but the great thing about what we've done as a team is being able to agree without being disagreeable and moving it forward, coming out of those meetings. So we're not through celebrating your retirement, and I don't want you to think this is the going away party, but in the final comments here for the commission, I just wanted to tell you thanks, consider you a great friend, and I'm a little jealous that you're going to be down in St. George in that warm weather, and I'll be up here. But I will have Commissioner Harvey to keep me, keep a smile on my face, so.
Good.
That's it for me.
Your friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, you know it. It's great. Well, it's been, Commissioner Farrar, I've known you ever since high school.
Yeah.
Now, I've not known you well till we went to the legislature together. And it was joy serving down there with you. And Commissioner Harvey, I didn't really get to know you till I started serving here. And it's been 4.5 wonderful years serving with you. I want you to know it. I really do. I appreciate you a lot. I've tried to do the best I could to keep us unified. I realize that we don't always get along and we vote opposite of each other, and I'm okay with that.
Well, that's because you've been wrong.
Many times I have been. But there's been several times where I've actually held votes off and done things until we could try to work our differences out.
Yeah.
And the one thing, the one thing I didn't want people to say about us when I left was the fact that we didn't work with each other and we were at each other's back all the time, and though we looked like some of the previous commissions. I just didn't want that to happen. So, pardon me, we've worked very hard to keep a little unity here amongst us and to make sure that we served in the best interest of the people we represent. Has been very, very front of my mind. I wanted people to speak respectfully of us. And I think we did that. So with that, I thank you for your comments. Let's adjourn and go. This is too much.